So, what's unique about us? Not much. We're a middle-aged couple, we raised 2 children, and we've been married for 29 years.
But wait a minute. There is something that's unique about us. We've actually bicycled across the country. Not only have we bicycled across the country, we've done it solo, we've done it by ourselves, we've done it on a bicycle built for 2, and we've done it twice.
Our first trip was in 2014. We rode across the northern boundary of the United States. We started in Bellingham, Washington, biked all the way across the United States to Bar Harbor, Maine. It took us 72 days, and we traveled 4,362 miles.
Now, we didn't learn our lesson the first time, so we decided we wanted to do it again. We'd gone from the west coast to the east coast, so we thought, well, what should we do this time? Well, going from the northern part of the United States to the southern part of the United States seemed only logical. So we left Green Bay in September, biked up to International Falls, Minnesota and the Canadian border, and then headed down to Minnesota. At Itasca State Park in Minnesota, we picked up the Mississippi River and we followed it all the way down to the southernmost point of Louisiana and the Gulf of Mexico. The trip took us 50 days and we covered 3,052 miles.
We started our trips as kind of a bucket list item, always something we wanted to do. But we found out it wasn't just about bicycling, it was really about life. And when we were out on the bicycle, we never had to search for adventure. Adventure always found us.
You know, just like bicycling, life has its ups and downs. It's not about if you're going to have ups and downs, it's about how you handle those ups and downs and the experiences that you have along the way.
We knew bicycling across the United States was going to be a challenge, and we really looked forward to those challenges, but what we didn't expect is how extreme some of those challenges actually would be.
You know, on our first trip, the challenges started from the get-go. In the first 2 days, we had to go from sea level all the way up to the highest point that we would cross in the Cascade Mountains. Think an elevation of 6,600 feet.
Okay, we were training in Wisconsin. Wisconsin in the spring, cold, it's rainy, it can even snow. So it's real tough to get out there on your bike. It's also very flat. We don't have mountains here to practice on.
On the second day of our trip, it was going to be the longest climb that we were going to have to undertake. We'd expected the climb, but what we didn't expect was that Tracy was going to have the flu that day. She had headaches, she was sick to her stomach. We really had to make a quick decision on whether we were going to attempt the climb or whether we were simply going to call off the trip. Well, we decided to go for it. Unable to eat or drink anything for 6.5 hours, Tracy simply put her head down and pedaled. Miraculously, we actually made it to the top of the climb. Once we got to the top of the climb, we were able to fuel up, we were able to put on some warm clothes and experience an absolutely incredible 45-mile-per-hour descent all the way down into the valley. By the next day, Tracy felt fine.
You know, never underestimate what you can do. You just never know. In the world today, it's a constant change. Things are moving very fast. And if you can't learn to deal with change, it's very difficult to be successful.
We were 3/4 of the way through an 80-mile day that was extremely hilly. We had most of the hills out of the way, so we were expecting a nice, easy cruise down into town. We were going to stop and get a hotel room, have some dinner, and the next day we were going to be off the bike. All of a sudden, bang, at 25 miles an hour, this huge noise, think flashbang grenade, came from the back of the bicycle. We immediately went from cruise mode to emergency mode. We were able to get the bike slowed down. We were able to pull it over to the side of the road. What we discovered is that the rear tire had literally just exploded. It blew up with such force that it knocked the pad out of the rear brake. We carried the equipment that we need with us on the bike to fix almost anything. This one was starting to look like it was going to be a little tricky. I took 3 attempts at making the change and finally had to admit that this one really just might be outside of my mechanical expertise. We were going to need some help. That is really hard for a couple of hardcore cross-country cyclists to admit.
Okay, about this time, Peter was struggling a bit. He also was getting a little grumpy. So I strategically moved myself down the road, away from the situation, and thought, now what can I do to get us back on track and get going again? About this time, a car went by, a van, and on the back of the van, there was a bicycle hanging there. So I thought, I'm going to flag these people down, which I did. They turned around, came back. It was a couple with their 2 young daughters. And they said, how can we help? And boy, did they ever help. In their car, they had a floor pump, so we were able to fix their tire. They took a bunch of our gear, put it in their van, went to the next town, which we were headed to, got us the last hotel room in town for the night, and took care of everything for us. We rolled into town about 2 hours later, cleaned up, and the family got a hold of us and said, "We're taking you out to dinner tonight."
You know, life is really all about changes, and it's your ability to adapt that's probably our most valued resource at this point. We have kind of a funny saying that we use a lot on the bike. It's always fun to get to the end of the day and find out how it was supposed to go. In our everyday life, it's really easy to think that this is a scary, scary world that we live in. But one of the things we enjoy most about being on the bike is that that belief is just proved almost daily.
Typically,
Warm showers.
oh, yes, sorry. On our trips, we typically camp, we hotel, motel, and we sometimes stay at private homes through an organization called Warm Showers. Warm Showers is an organization, online community, that basically opens their homes to cross-country cyclists, and in turn, you open your home to cross-country cyclists.
We were scheduled to do a warm shower stay with a host in Bismarck, North Dakota. The plan was that we were going to stay with them just for one night, which is normally what we do. The problem was we woke up the next day, it was raining so hard, it was literally unsafe to ride. So we had a little bit of an issue that we had to deal with, and we weren't quite sure how to approach it. Fortunately, our host came up to us before we even asked and offered to let us stay for another day. Well, that was great, but we didn't know quite how the day was going to go. They told us that they had a family gathering, and so they were going to leave, leaving us alone in their house. Well, that was fine, but later that morning we discovered that not only had they left us alone in their house, but they'd left their car keys for us, and they'd left us a note that says, "I'm sure you have some errands, so please feel free to use our car." Seriously, these people don't know us at all. They're letting us use their car. Who does that kind of thing?
The only thing we could think of to thank them was to fill up their gas tank with gas, which we did. We found on our bicycle clip, whether it's because we're on a bicycle, whether it's because we look vulnerable, or just the fact that people want to get involved in our trip and be part of the adventure. These things that happen to us, the really kind, good things happen, are more common than the other things, the bad things that would happen to us. People really engage and want to be a part of our trip.
You know, life is really all about experiences.
Sometimes there's hard things that happen, there's big challenges. The worst part is not reaching out and searching for that challenge.
You know, most of the things that we're worried about are never going to happen. We find typically that the days on the bike that start out the worst almost always end up to be the best.
Life can be tough, and you got to reach out and try to take care of those struggles and go on with life.
You know, we live and die a little bit every day on the bike, but by the end of the day, we are always glad that we went for the ride. What will your ride be?